Okay, let's go back to 2009. The internet still felt kind of new, full of possibilities. But a story was about to break that would show everyone a much, much darker side of it all. And believe it or not, it all started with just one word.
Craigslist. Yeah, that website. The place you'd go to find a used couch or a roommate. But for one person, it wasn't about that at all. For him, it was a hunting ground, a place to find his victims, hiding right there in plain sight.
And at the center of this story is a guy who, on the surface, seemed to have it all. A guy who would become known everywhere as the med student killer. So meet Philip Markoff. He's smart, he's clean-cut, and he's in Boston studying to be a doctor at a prestigious medical school. I mean, this is the guy you're supposed to trust, right? The very picture of a perfect, promising future. But here's the twist. Behind that perfect image of the healer, there was a hunter. The guy who was learning to save lives was also a predator. The future doctor was a violent criminal. It's like two completely different people living inside one man. So, how in the world does that happen? How does a healer become a hunter? Well, let's get into how he twisted this simple, everyday website into something truly terrifying. His whole method was just chillingly straightforward. First, you'd go on Craigslist and look for women who were offering massage services. Then, he'd set up a meeting, always at a nice hotel. But as soon as that door closed, the mask came off. The doctor-to-be became an attacker, robbing and assaulting them. But it didn't stop at robbery. The violence started to escalate, and soon, one of his attacks would go horribly wrong. One of his victims wouldn't make it out of that hotel room alive. We have to say her name, Julissa Brisman. When she was murdered in that hotel, this case completely changed. It wasn't just about a string of robberies anymore. Now, police were hunting for a killer. So, you've got a killer on the loose in a major city. The clock is ticking. But, in this digital age, everybody leaves a footprint. The real question was, could the police piece together his digital trail in time? And slowly, they started to. These little digital breadcrumbs started to form a picture. They had CCTV footage from the hotels, which gave them a glimpse of his face. They traced the burner phones he used, giving them a connection. And then, the big break, surveillance footage from a casino, taken right after an attack, gave them a crystal-clear shot of their suspect. And once they had that, things moved incredibly fast. Okay, check this out. On April 14th, Julissa Brisman is killed. Just 2 days later, by the 16th, investigators have digital clues that are all pointing to one guy. 2 more days go by, and on the 18th, they've got that clear casino footage. And by April 20th, just 6 days after the murder, Philip Markoff is arrested. The net had closed around him just like that. But the arrest? That was just the beginning of the story. The real shockwave hit when the world found out who the so-called Craigslist killer actually was. The reaction was just total disbelief. I mean, can you blame them? This brilliant med student, a guy who took an oath to do no harm, a future doctor, how could he be a murderer? It just didn't make sense. The headlines really said it all. The man who was supposed to spend his life saving people was actually taking lives. You'd think the story would end with a long, dramatic trial, right? Well, that's not what happened. There was one last, absolutely shocking twist to come. So now, fast forward to 2010, Philip Markoff is sitting in a jail cell. That bright future he had is completely gone, replaced with the reality of spending the rest of his life behind bars. But a trial was never going to happen. Philip Markoff was found dead in his cell. He had taken his own life. And with that, he took any chance of getting real answers, any chance for his victims to see justice served. And in the end, we're just left with this really unsettling thought. In a world where anyone can be anyone online, behind a screen, how do we really know who we're dealing with? And how do we spot the danger before it's way, way too late?